How you doing, Badger?
Oh, I'm doing alright. I've got a bit of a cold at the moment, but otherwise I'm fine. Uh, Life upheaval, but, I'm surviving.
What's your upheaval? Because I've had several on my end.
Well, it's the same ongoing one. I've just been struggling to deal with it. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing with myself.
Well, I, on the other hand, got a job that's not martial arts training.
Oh,
I am now selling cards. Um, and my video backlog, I'm now backlogged over 300 and some videos that I've recorded that have not been edited, that are just sitting on my phone, just taking up space.
outstanding.
But I actually called you, even though this is going to show that you called me. I actually hit you up on our Twitter DM, put you in those DMs, boy. And because I thought, with everything that's going on politically and religiously in the world, me and you could have a really good conversation. Would you be down for that for a few minutes?
Oh, I'm about for a little while. Let's have a chat.
All right. So let's cover your end first. You still an atheist, buddy?
Yeah, I'm still going with that.
You still dating a raccoon?
Yeah, still going with that. That's
Okay.
that's complicated as well.
She's still possibly Canadian or Australian or something other than a Brit?
Yeah, but I can't confirm or deny what because privacy details and all that.
I got you. I got you. You still trying to save the animals?
Oh yeah, yeah, doing the old conservation and that business.
All right. And have you
Particularly the
gotten
badgers,
yourself?
because the badgers is my peoples.
I got you. I got you. Have you gotten a new job? Or are you still doing the same old, same old?
Oh, I'm between several different things at the moment. I'm studying one thing. I'm looking at jobs in other areas. I'm
Because
having a
remember,
bit
we
of
are recording.
I'm having a bit of upheaval, you see. So I don't really know what I'm
Ah,
doing with myself right now.
well, let's see. On my end, um, I married the girl that I was dating, which last time you talked to me, me and her had just broken up. So you can imagine how that's a change.
Yeah, that's the
Let's
thing
see.
that's
Make this
happened.
larger? No, I can't. Yeah, full screen. Here we go. Full screen. Bam. Now you guys can see the extension.
Oh, that's handy.
All right. So I married that girl that I broke up with. She
Yep.
has a 10-year-old, and we're working that out. She spends 4 months in China and then 1 month here, and then all over again. So that's what we're doing going toward the future. Uh, and I got myself a Camaro. Bought myself a
Ooh,
Camaro.
oh, fancy.
Mm, yeah. I still got the Jeep. In fact, as soon as I get off the phone with you, I'm going to be driving around in the Jeep because I can't do that during my work week. But oh, I miss my Jeep.
So you got a
Let's see.
work car and a fun driving car now, have you?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. Oh, can you see the excitement and joy on my face? Also, my wife decided to change the way that my room is made up. For instance, she got me a box that has a "I heart love you" thing.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Oh yeah, yeah, fits my style exactly. Which is kind of one of the reasons why I thought of calling you today. I've had to, at this job, stifle a lot of the things that I love about myself.
Hmm.
Uh, for instance, my politics and my religion.
I hear
Yeah,
this
you're just
can
not allowed
happen
to.
with jobs.
Yeah, you're not allowed to express those things the way you might want to. You were going to say?
I said I hear this can happen with particularly sales jobs and customer facing jobs. I had a similar problem in one of my previous jobs.
Well, it actually made me sympathize not only with you but with Amun Ra, or whatever he calls himself.
Yeah, I know
Uh,
that.
yeah, big guy, has a beard, has a problem with religion.
Yeah, I'm aware of the guy, but I have been in a live chat with him.
So I'm at work with people who believe in ghost and positive thinking, and that somehow what your thoughts all can change not only what happens during the day, but how other people perceive reality. Not how you perceive reality, which everyone can agree that our perception of reality is based solely on how we perceive things. Let me say that again.
Our
Even though we're
perception
not
is
going to edit.
based on our perception. Yes,
Yeah.
excellent.
Uh, how our ability to understand things is based on our perception. I don't deny that. But the idea that our mentality or that our positive thinking can change reality is a level of, I'm going to call it delusion, that I'm just not comfortable with. And having to deal with that day in, day out is kind of getting to me. And it makes me sympathize for the atheists that I like debating with, a little bit more.
Yeah, we're sitting here going, oh, all these crazy people that praying to the sky and there's nobody there. And then you're there going, oh, there's all these people, they're praying to their dead mother and there's nobody there.
It's the idea that somehow if I think positive about an outcome, that it changes the outcome. And I understand that there's some chaos theory and some, you can talk about electrons affecting other electrons and all that kind of crap. But on a practical, literal level, what my thoughts are doesn't change what your opinion is. You know what I mean? We have to have that
Unless
conversation.
you tell me your
that
thoughts.
Yeah.
And convince me.
Which is exactly. Yeah. So I really have a problem with that whole point of view of where they're taking strip bits of the Bible, they're taking bits of, popular philosophy and a bit of pop science and pop psychology, and they're just throwing it out there like it is as if it means something. And I'm picturing every single atheist girlfriend I've ever dated, and I'm just like, yeah, I feel you now. I get it. I get it. To see how this is frustrating for you.
Okay.
So I thought
you'll be throwing the Bible out within a week.
No, sir. No, sir. The Bible is one of the few things. The Bible and my evening readings are one of the few things that have been getting me through this period. Believe it or not. But before we get into that, I thought we'd lay down a little schedule for the people who are watching this. I personally would like to talk some politics. What's going on with the wall here in America? What's going on with Brexit with you?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to talk about the Catholic scandal. Not just the sex scandal, but now apparently, or the abuse scandal, but apparently that there are children of priests who are like, hey, what about us? How come we're not being part of this conversation? So there's that going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's the whole thing going on with YouTube, where YouTube now wants to censor conspiracy content.
Yeah.
I think all those are valid topics to talk about. Is there anything that you'd like to add to this list? And who knows if we'll get to it all.
Oh, well, let's just stick to that for a minute. I might come up with something as we go.
Which one would you like to talk about first?
Well, let's start with one of yours, and then we'll come to... How about the wall? How's the wall going? Because you're right next to it, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm literally less than 15 miles away from the wall. I live in the city, one of the cities that's countersuing Trump because he wants to take up land that belongs to people. So people who don't know what's happening with Trump and with the wall, the thing about the Rio Grande Valley, which is where I'm from, which I haven't said that on here before, but now you know, is that we were originally part of Mexico. So there are people who own property from before Texas was Texas. So because they own property from before, their property lines are both in the Mexican territory and in the United States territory. Mm-hmm. So their property stretches over both lines, and it is a river. Well, Trump is going to ruin that. There's some golf courses that have already sued, but now private citizens are getting kind of upset about it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And for instance, where I work, there are a lot of people who have strong Mexican heritage. So they don't have my accent. They actually speak much more like if they're from Central Mexico. So okay. You end up having people that are completely American, raised here in America, born in America,
American citizens, but not speaking,
speaking Spanish,
mm-hmm.
Which is a nightmare for me because I only speak English and a little bit of Russian. The way you interact with people is very different, and Trump is exploiting that difference and turning it into fear. Everybody who's watched my channel knows that I'm a Republican. I'm not a fan of Trump. I never have been. But what he's doing right now is he's using that fear on both sides, on both the affluent Republican Christian fear about the immigrant, and then using the immigrant's fear of what America might or might not be. And He's using it to exploit a fear that isn't there and declaring an emergency that just isn't happening. So that's really problematic. It really is. I don't know any of those. I hate using the word problematic because of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
internet
There's
speak, but
a little bit of a stigma attached.
it truly is. It's really annoying what he's doing. He's exploiting people's fears on both sides to create a situation that doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's what's going on with my political. How about you? How's Brexit going? I hear it's going well.
Oh, Brexit's just going great. You've seen Theresa May, right?
You mean my new sexy poster on the wall?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You know how Obama, when you look at the difference in photographs from when he first became president and when he stopped being president. You know I mean, how long was he president?
8 years.
Yeah, and it looks like he aged 20 years in that time. You see the same sort of thing going on with Theresa May. Whenever she comes out of a meeting, she looks like she's gone in at 50 and come out at 80 because she's trying to wrangle her own party and everyone else's to do what she wants, and none of them are playing along with her. I disagree with her as well, so I've got very little sympathy for her politically, but I do have some sympathy for her in terms of blood pressure.
Well, actually, what you just said right there is kind of where I was going before I got lost in my own thoughts, which is I have a lot of sympathy for Trump. I, what the media is doing to him and saying about him is completely false, and I think that's really a stupid way to attack your political enemies. Trump is making mistakes on his own. You don't need to make up stuff. You don't need to twist his words to make him into a fool. He's doing that on his own. You don't need to make him the victim because then all you're doing is you're making his side notice how much you're lying, how much fake news you're putting out there. Well, yeah, then they're not going to believe you no matter what you say about him, even if it's 100% true, because all you're doing is playing against a stereotype, and nobody wants to see a straw man get beat up. You know,
Well,
is that what's happening with Theresa May, or is she just
I
out?
don't know. I wouldn't mind beating up a straw man at some point, but it's just you
Well,
just
you
get
are,
hack at them with
yeah.
a machete and the straw flies everywhere. But anyway, Theresa May, I don't think most of the stuff said about her is undeserved. I don't think she's. I mean, there are lies being told about her, but I don't think that's the majority of the narrative. I think a lot of it is just she's not doing very well. She's struggling. No one in the government agrees with her. No one in the country, or a majority of people in the country, disagree with both her and the government as a whole. And it's just generally she's not in a great position. I believe I've said where I fall on the Brexit thing before, which is I'm on the. One second.
Okay. Okay, guys,
No,
the British government has gone into his house. Yes, they've captured the badger. The badger is being taken away now. He's saying something about Guy Fawkes. I don't know what's happening. I'm an American. I don't get that reference. Anyway,
okay, I'm back.
as I was saying, America is the greatest country in the. Oh, okay.
Yep. So what was I saying? Before I was rudely interrupted by the SWAT officers. Um, yeah, I fall on the side of I voted to leave, and I still think that's a good thing. I'm against big centralized government generally because my view on government, I find that I don't fall very well on any sort of political side that people, the whole left-right divide thing doesn't really work so well when I try to figure out where I stand politically. I tend to be more on the left than the right on some issues, but on others I'm all over the place. Like, my view on government is its only purpose should be to provide security and stability to those it governs, and to protect those it governs from exploitation by large corporations.
Can I stop you there? Because believe it or not, I think you're saying something that bleeds into where we're going to go next, which is the religious topic. Like I said, one of my problems where I'm working is that they're kind of mismatching what religion is with superstition. And that's something that you guys attack all the time.
Hmm.
And I think it's really difficult to separate things out if you don't know what you're talking about. And so when people intermix superstition with common folklore and they mix it in with religion and science, and you get this like weird mixture of things that don't really fit together. And I'm not saying that science and religion don't mix together. I'm just being clear that when you mix things that you don't normally mix together, you get this weird kind of gunk that's really hard to get rid of. It just is. It's like, for instance, I consider myself a Republican, because I'm free speech and I'm pro-gun. But
Hmm.
my friends are, I have very liberal friends. My friends are feminists. My friends are, LTBG, you know, Q. Like those are who my friends are.
Yeah.
And like when I then have to listen to a religious, like for instance, I like listening to the Catholic stuff because the Catholic stuff at least acknowledges science. And then when they talk about the LGBTQ community, they then add the alphabet soup to it. And I'm just like, guys, come on, don't play into the stereotype that you yourself are trying to say you're not part of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it makes it really hard to take them seriously when it's like, oh no, we're the reasonable ones, but we're going to be unreasonable on this one particular point. It then hurts the whole case.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
see what you're saying there. Um, and you brought up one of the things that makes that well, brought up one of the topics there that I tend to disagree with the so-called political left on, which is well, both of them actually is free speech and guns, or weapons in general. I'm for the freedom aspect on both of those. I'm not going to say that I'm completely pro everyone should have access to any weapon ever. However, I think that personal defense should be
Hold
as
on,
well
wait.
as
I'm getting a hearing that the raid team is again outside your door. You
uh,
might want to be careful what you say next.
that's all right because I have no, I shouldn't say that. No.
You don't say. Be careful, buddy. Be careful. You are still being played in the UK as well. It's not just an American
Yeah,
YouTube
yeah.
thing.
No, I have a I have a BB gun next to a bottle of
Oh,
whiskey in my drawer.
congratulations.
Anyway,
Keep it at that. Keep it at that.
yeah,
I don't want to edit anything.
what was I going to say? No, I'm on the side that as well as government providing security, people should provide their own security for themselves, and they should have the right to defend themselves lethally if necessary.
Well, I mean, like for instance, all my friends own guns. I'm the only one who doesn't. I own swords. I'm a martial artist, and I haven't had a chance to
Also,
use.
swords over here. Yep.
I haven't had a chance to use my skills in the last few months. I haven't had a chance to spar with anyone or train with anyone, and it's one of the things that I'm lamenting about this job is that I spent a good portion of my life, well over 15 years, perfecting martial arts. And suddenly it's an aspect of my life I don't get to use on a daily basis. And it's very sad and it's very stifling. So I can understand when someone, let's say in the UK, is like, all I want to do is go to a clay pigeon shoot and, fire some rounds, or all I want to do is go hunting.
Hmm.
And it's a skill that's been in my family for years, but suddenly I can't express it because it's no longer allowed. So I have sympathy for that predicament because I love martial arts and I would love to in the morning have 1 hour to do a good training session before I
Mm.
go to work. I wake up within 2 hours. I'm at work. I'm at work for 14 hours, sometimes 12, sometimes 14. I get home. I get 3 or 4 hours before I have to fall back to sleep. And if I decide to watch an episode in Arrow or if I decide to read a book, there goes my night.
Mm.
And suddenly I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to edit my videos anymore.
I
And it
should
just,
probably mention if I worked that many hours in a day, I'd quit within a week.
yeah. So it's very difficult, and I would hate to live in a country where the freedoms are eroding as quickly as they are in the UK, because if mind you, I'm willingly giving up working out in exchange for money. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I would hate to give up a freedom unwillingly. Like I don't even want to know what that has to feel like for you guys. That has to be horrible.
Well, I was born long after the whole regular, people carrying weapons around was a current issue in this country. There's smaller aspects of it, like certain very specific areas, like certain pistols not being allowed anymore, even for sports shooters. Now, that was a thing that came down during my lifetime, I think, but I wasn't involved in it, and there wasn't anything related to me. However, on the freedom of speech side of things, yes, I have seen that get progressively worse throughout the course of my life. Uh, Whereas, it's gone from the internet being a essentially free and open platform to discuss things to some teenager in, I can't remember which town it was, but a town being arrested for posting rap lyrics with the wrong word in them.
Believe it or not, I'm actually in that same situation, which is just 3 months ago, I could say anything I want on my channel. Now there are certain words I can't say without getting fired. I mean, that's a scary thing. I think the way that society is moving is totalitarian. I think it's tyrannical, and I don't think it is the right way to go. I think the whole idea, and this will go right into the YouTube thing. I think the whole idea of censoring conspiracy content, of censoring religious content, of censoring even certain types of sexual content is the wrong way to go. Yeah, there has to be lines. You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. Absolutely, that's 100% true. You should not endanger anyone. You shouldn't endanger uh,
Although Hitchens
minors.
did that
Yeah,
once to prove a point.
yeah, but I'm saying though, you shouldn't endanger minors. You shouldn't endanger people's ability to live or to make an income. People ability to support a family. Yeah,
Hmm.
okay. Liability laws, liable slander laws need to exist. I agree 100%. But if it's simply a bad conspiracy theory about how deer secretly control the universe, or it's some kind of, I don't like taking this kind of medicine because it makes me feel weird, and I'm the only person who has this problem. You got to let that guy speak, because who knows, 100 years from now, you might find out that that one thing, for instance,
Hmm.
we used to have lead paint,
Yep.
really did make people have headaches.
Hmm.
And if you were to shut up that guy, that one person who was speaking out against it, I say guy, it could have been a girl, but whoever it was
Yep.
who was originally speaking out against it, yeah. If you
That's
shut that person down as a conspiracy, then we would have never found out that he was slowly killing people and hurting
hmm
people's brains.
it's not. It's not just that. It's also things that people find offensive. I do not think should be censored, or and the people should not be arrested for saying them. Even if it's culturally or racially insensitive words, I don't think they should be arrested for that. That's freedom of speech.
I also don't think people should lose their job over that. Look, I'm Hispanic, and I'll admit it. I don't like it when people talk bad about Hispanic people, but no one should lose their job over saying something terrible about me or about someone else. People have tempers and people get upset, and people should be allowed to express that as long as it's not violent. Who cares?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Apparently, a lot of people on the internet do. I think
apparently a lot of people around the world do, but I don't think it should. I don't think it should matter what
I
person's
think
thought.
that particular thing is a slightly different issue to the free speech as
I think it's
government
directly
control.
related. I
I,
think
I,
it's
I,
directly
I
related.
agree that it's directly related, but I think it's a slightly different issue just in application. And what I mean by that is, in terms of someone being arrested for something, for example, in England, where well, let's do the big one that all the free speech people on the net are on about. Count Dankula
Okay.
saying his thing where he got his girlfriend's dog to raise its paw in response to him saying Nazi things,
Right.
and was arrested, dragged through the courts for longer than the Nuremberg trials went on for, and then eventually fined £800, which he's refusing to pay. Um,
Smart.
Now, that is a case of a clear case of the government and the legal system overstepping its authority, and it needs to be dealt with. Whereas someone losing their job for saying something that people find offensive is a very similar issue, but because it's not the government doing it, it's not quite the same. But I think in that case, and just let me finish this little sentence, I think in that case the issue then becomes that corporations don't see people as people, they see them as a series of numbers. And if your income into the company doesn't exceed the number of the income to the company doesn't exceed the number of the problems caused for the company, then you're fine. But if that problems caused for the company number gets a little bit too high, they throw you out on the street. And I think that's a problem of companies need to look after their employees and not bow to pressure of just a load of people who are offended.
Well, see, here's where I'm going to disagree with you. Okay, and it's a small disagreement. It's not even worth anything. But then again, religions have started for small disagreements. All right, so I'm going to go with the social contract. I'm going to go with John Stuart Mill on liberty, and I'm going to go with The Rights of Man by Thomas Paine here. Okay, and I am going to say that it has to do directly with the social contract, which is corporations and the government would not be able to take away your freedom, would not be able to make you unemployed if the people weren't willing to give up that freedom. It's the fact that there are people, even if it's a majority, it's a large enough minority, even if it's a minority, it's a large enough minority that they are willing to give up their rights. And because of that, that gives the corporations and therefore the government not only the ability, but the willingness to use that power. If the people themselves weren't willing to give up their freedoms, weren't willing to have people be unemployed or lose their jobs, if they weren't crying for this outrage of justice to happen, the governments would never have the balls to do it. It's the fact that people are asking for it. It's the fact that there are people in, let's say, Islam, who want people to be arrested for saying something against Islam. It's the fact that there are Christians who want abortion clinics to be shut down. It's the fact that SJWs want men not to be allowed to interrupt women for fear of some kind of misogyny or some kind of harassment. It's that fear, that want of control by this group that then gives the government, which is not Muslim, which is not women, which is not Christian, it gives a secular government that's not any of these things, that's not any of these minorities, the power to use its power, the ability to use its power against the people. And that's what they're empowering. They are empowering a government to do what it wishes. And I think that is very dangerous. I think the more that we make YouTube and Google a government, the more that power that we give them to censor our speech, the more they will use that power. You don't give a corporation, you don't give someone who a politician, someone who wants power, and then expect them not to use it. They're going to use it. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe wearing the black hat is making me sound conspiratorial, but I'm just saying.
No, I see what you're saying there. I think we're looking at the same issue, and we're just looking at it from slightly different perspectives because, well, we have different outlooks. My view on it is I agree that this wouldn't exist if people weren't calling for other people to lose their jobs and livelihoods because of offence and things that they say that they disagree with, be that blasphemy or social outrage. I think it needs to be kind of looked at and tackled on every level, including companies need to actually stand by their employees and their staff and say, right, no, you have come to us saying this person has done something terrible. They haven't. They've just said something you didn't like, and our contract with them is they do this job, we pay them for it. It has nothing to do with what they say outside the job.
I agree with that. But I think it also affects the government. I think the government for instance, the UK or Germany has the ability to abuse that power once it's given to them. So,
Oh yeah, I agree with
yeah,
that as well. Governments, I think governments inevitably abuse their power in some way,
I
but
agree.
I think the level of power that a government has is proportional to the amount of abuse that it can do. Not proportional, sorry. I think the amount of
'Cause that's a strong statement. If that's what you're going with, that's stronger than anything I was saying. And I was
no, no,
saying strong shit right now.
that's not quite what I was trying to say. I've mixed my words up. I think the more power a government has,
Hmm.
I think the amount of abuse that of that power that may happen could increase exponentially as the government's power increases, because the more power a government has, and the less oversight a government has, the less that an abuse of power would appear abusive to the ones within that structure. If a person, uh, let me think of an example. I sometimes cheat a little bit at things that I'm doing just to give myself a slightly easier time of what I'm doing. Let me give you the example of role play. Round the table role play with dice. I sometimes, if I roll and my roll is shit, I sometimes will look at that dice and go, nobody saw that roll, did they? Right, I'll roll it again while nobody's looking.
Yeah.
But if that roll was a decision I made as part of a massive government that affected thousands of people, and I just went, oh, I may, I could do this decision slightly differently, and it would benefit me as a person, but it would adversely affect all these thousands of people in a way they wouldn't know about. That's
Well,
abuse of power, and
I
that
would say
it's in the
I
mind.
would interrupt you
Just
there.
one
I
more
would
thing.
interrupt you there.
It's in the
Let me interrupt you
mind.
there.
It's the
Yeah.
same level of in the mind. It's the same level of thing. Just a slight tweak will benefit me slightly, but in reality, it has a much greater effect because of the amount of people that person's level of power affects.
Well, hold on, because I think you actually hit a better example than you realize, which is that if you remember, if you played the game Monopoly, it's a very popular game. Have
I've
you
played
played it?
Monopoly. Yeah,
Okay.
I was
So,
never very good at it.
well, actually, no, that's actually part of the point,
Yep.
which is everybody started making their own rules, and the rules were never what the company says how you're supposed to play. So now there are new versions of Monopoly with the bad rules already inserted. So instead of making the thing that was cheating, instead of getting rid of it, you've now institutionalized the cheating. So now every time you have that bad roll, you're going to do it every time, and all because a small group of people were like, "Oh, this makes it easier for us."
Hmm.
You institutionalize the cheat, and so now it's not cheating. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, like corporate influence in government, as an example. It would have been a shameful thing at first for a politician to say, well, yeah, I took money from this big corporation and I did things that promoted their interests, but now that's standard and assumed for every politician.
yeah, you change the law to match what you want, and now suddenly it's not illegal anymore. All right, so let's move forward. Let's move forward from that. The religious scandals that are going on.
Oh, here we
We hit
go.
so. What about religion would you like to talk about? Let me have you open that up since you're the anti-religious guy on the table.
Well, here's a little thing. There's something that in the past few months I've walked back a little bit. I decided that the title anti-theist doesn't fit me fully, because I'm not against religion in all its forms. I'm against organised religion that causes harm, in the same way that I'm against organised, big corporations and big government that causes harm.
Mhm.
Uh, Personal religious practice, like someone just having a view that their ancestors are out there somewhere, and that's comforting to them, but not pushing that view on anyone else, and not using that view to affect anyone else. I'm not against that. So I don't use the term anti-theist anymore because I don't consider myself to be completely against it in all its forms.
Okay. Well, for those who are watching, I'm eating breakfast right now. It's 1 o'clock my time. Today was a whole day where my whole goal was eating breakfast. So that's what I'm doing.
Outstanding. I'm going to
Okay,
go and have
but
breakfast for my dinner in a minute.
okay, so here's my thing on that is I would argue that just like a strong government can protect the people, a strong institutional religion can protect from, let's call it cultishness, or can protect from heresy. For instance, sacrificing children is
Hmm.
something that creeps up in a lot of religions. Orthodoxy protects against those types of practices coming up. There's one of the channels that I like subscribing to that I'm not able to watch anymore because I don't have the time is pagan practice or pagan learning or something like that.
Yeah.
And what it is that they have different guest speakers every week talk about how they practice their pagan art. And what you notice is that the more isolated the practitioner is, the more esoteric and the more, I would say, frightening their practice is. While the more incorporated into a group and the more they're going based off books, the less crazy their practice. And what you find is that with religion, if you're with the Catholic Church or the Orthodox Church, you're going to have certain standardized practices. If you're an Orthodox Jew, you're going to have certain practices that keep you stable and keep you away from some of the grosser and quite frankly horrible, horrific things that happen in religion. And you
What
know where I'm going, but like that's that is what I'm saying though.
when you
You know
when you
what I
say
mean?
more esoteric and frightening in your previous bit, what do you mean? What be an example?
Let's just take the Jonestown thing, or
Okay.
let's take
Well, you mentioned pagan art. I think it was art. You said, and practitioners from more disparate and disconnected groups. What? How would that manifest itself as
well,
in a
like for
frightening
instance,
way?
like I like one of the things that I liked about dating women who were Wiccan is that they would like to do rituals in skyclad. Okay. Well, the thing is that that can get real out of hand when you're talking about teenagers getting into Wiccanism.
Uh huh.
And suddenly you have rituals where there's older practitioners teaching younger practitioners how to do skyclad magic. That right there would be not only a violation of ethics, that'd be a violation of law. So you can see where the abuse can happen.
Can we just
And
define what that is for a second? Just because I'm not quite in with the Wiccans at the moment.
these are old examples, so I
I
don't
do
even think
actually have a discussion on my channel planned with the Wiccan at some point in the future, but we haven't arranged a date yet.
I have like 4 or 5 Wiccan books from back in the day. Now they call them Wiccan classics, by the way. They don't even call them the current books. That tells you how long ago I read this stuff.
Oh yeah.
But back when I was 18, when I was like 17, 18, and 19, I used to date a Wiccan. And I used to date, you end up like dating their coven. That's what ends up happening. So, and the thing about it is that a lot of it is just rebellion against the parents, rebellion against religion. If someone's still a Wiccan in their 30s, I don't think that's going to be the case. I just want to be very clear. I'm not saying all pagan practices are rebellion. I'm saying when you're that age and you're in a Catholic community and you're dating a Wiccan, more than likely that Wiccan is doing it to rebel. They're doing it because they saw the craft. You know what I mean?
Uh
At
huh.
least my age. Or they really thought Charmed was awesome. So, you start getting a lot of what I call TV spiritualism. And this happens in Christianity as well, where people will take stuff they see on Supernatural or they see in the movie The Prophecy, and they'll think that's actual religion. For instance, like I said, at work, people will quote to me religious stuff that's from a movie. That's not from an actual religious book or from an actual theological study.
Well,
And you end up
that's an
having to kind of
interesting
go like,
thing because
you know,
the only Bible verse that I can say from memory, I'm not sure I have correct. In fact, I'm pretty certain I don't because I'm quoting it from Pulp Fiction.
that is exactly my point. Thank you. You proved the atheist proved the religious guy's point. Video over. Everybody go home. Religion wins. No, but that is honestly a problem. It's really scary when like I love reading the Witcher books, okay? But I know that's fiction. I know that's not real magic. You know, I'm not going
Mm.
out there like I'm gonna now get
Hang
the
on, hang on.
mutagen and
So
get
you're
superpowers.
not trying you're not coming over to England and taking the train up to Scotland to burn Harry Potter at the stake.
Maybe not now, and not because of like magic, just because that actor's done a lot of bad movies.
Eh.
And metaphorically burn him at the stake. Like maybe a roast. Yeah, something like that. Not literal.
Burn him in the
Um,
comments section.
Also, I think those movies are crap. I'll be honest with you. I didn't like them. I didn't like the Harry Potter
Oh,
movies.
now we're
I thought
talking.
they were shit.
Now we got
Yeah,
some
I know.
spicy things. I'll be putting that up on the Twitters later. Alpha
I
4.
I
Harry
will
Potter
take
is
I will
crap.
take the Witcher series book series over the hell. I'll even take the Dresden Files series over Harry Potter. Okay, that's how I feel about it.
If you want a
The
good
books.
book series, I recommend the Star Wars Republic Commando series.
If you want a good book series, can I recommend? And this is guilty of everything I was just talking about because it takes all the pop culture, religion, and science stuff
Hmm.
and turns it into a mishmash. Is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy? It's great. It's like professional wrestling meets supernatural. It is.
Interesting.
I like it. I like it a lot. Anyway, that being said, we got totally off topic.
Yeah, you were
So
on about
religious
the
tragedy. Yeah,
religious not understanding the religion because they've got it all from films.
yeah. Yeah. So like there is a danger of that. There is a danger of people creating their own religion. And I know that for those who are atheists, you got like, well, what's the point of, it's no true Scotsmaning. I get this how you guys view it, but it's not. These practices have been established since before writing existed. Our earliest writings are religious writings. They just are. You don't have to like it, but it's a fact. You can say, okay, well, yeah, okay, so we have this list of grain. That's not religion. What was the grain being stored for? It was being stored for a festival or a sacrifice. Religion is a key component of human history. You can't separate that out. And what ends up happening is that you have what we call religious thinkers say, hey, look, these people are using religion in a bad way. These people are using religion in a correct way. Here are the practices that make for a good, healthy religion. Here are the practices that make for a horrible society. We need to keep these practices out of our faith. This happens in Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Shintoism, Buddhism. All these books, all these religions have to be codified because it turns out that if you just let people do whatever they want, they will use a little bit of knowledge to do something horrible. And that's true no matter what, whether it's faith or science. People have a tendency to do evil things. Hence, Christianity comes up with the concept of original sin to explain that. Now, you can say, well, where's the proof of that? And I could argue back with, no, it's being used to diagnose the problem. It's not the other way around. You know what I mean? Like you're looking at it from the other point of view. You're like, well, no, this says this is the reason for the problem. How can that work? But religious people, especially Catholics and of both Orthodox and Roman standard, is saying, no, we're looking at the problem, and here is what explains it. So we're putting the problem first and then saying, okay, we're going to call that original sin. You guys are looking at, okay, well, here's original sin, and that's what you guys say made all this. It's like, no, we saw a problem. Specifically, ancient Mesopotamian people saw a problem and came up with a theory that happens to work in a religious idea, in a religious viewpoint. You get what I'm saying?
I think so, but I don't think. I think the part where we disagree would be I don't think it's a useful concept to continue with when we now have more information and different and conflicting information.
But the problem is that
Information.
but the problem is that you can't get rid of the problem of evil. Like I don't give a shit what you say you are. I don't care if you're an atheist, anti-theist, whatever. You can't get rid of the problem of evil. evil exists whether religion exists or not. And any idiot, and I'm talking to you, Sam Harris, who thinks that if you get rid of religion, you get rid of evil, you're a fucking moron. Okay? Evil exists even in the most atheist country you can think of. And you can blame communism, you can blame whatever you want to blame. Evil is going to exist. You need to have a counter to that. For religious people, that's God, that's goodness. For non religious people, you better have an ethos to combat the evil nature within yourself, your evil impulses. That's just the truth. If you don't have ethics, you're not going to have a good life. You're going to be a horrible person.
Yeah, I don't
And I don't
disagree
care
with
where
you
you
there.
get the ethics from.
I don't disagree with you there, but I don't think religion is required for ethics. I'm not saying that religious ethics can't be useful, and it is demonstrable that they can, but I'm saying it's not the only way to be ethical, and it's not necessarily the best way to be ethical.
Can I give you a quote from a pagan, not from a Christian?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. He was saying this, and when I read this, it blew my mind. I put it on my Facebook immediately, which is he said, beware what or who you make your master, and understand that whatever is your master is your God. That's from a pagan.
Mm-hmm.
That's not from a Christian. This is from a pagan. This is from ancient Rome. Okay? To be careful what you make your master, and to understand that even if you're an atheist, pagan saying this, even if you don't believe in the gods, whatever you make your master is your God.
Well, I haven't got any profound response to that. That's something I'll have to think about for a while.
Religion! Round two. All right, that's two. That's two. You get a third one, man. You're out. You have to tap out. You're going to have to join some kind of faith, my friend.
Oh, well, maybe I'll become an atheo-pagan then. A couple of people actually that I've been talking to in the sort of atheist community have gone the atheo-pagan route.
What exactly is that?
I don't entirely know. They have gone through an entire thing. Well, I do in an abstract sense know. It's people who follow essentially, the modern form of paganism's practices.
They don't believe the gods are real.
They don't believe the gods are real, but they follow the practices for the social and the cultural and the emotional aspects.
I get that. All right,
so it would be similar to a cultural Jew who doesn't believe in Judaism but follows the cultural practices, but from a modern pagan perspective.
Well, let me ask you, because we did my part of the religion. What about you? Is there anything on religious that you want to talk about?
Let me have a little think. Well, the Pope's been saying some funny things lately.
Okay, give me one. I need a reference. It's not like you can just say that and I know which one it is now because he says things all the time.
Oh, that one Pope. No.
Oh, what? What did he say?
No, he said he was quoted as saying, I'm not 100% sure he said it in exactly these words, but the people who are making accusations towards the church are bad people. In relation to the child abuse scandal.
Well,
I'm not 100% sure that I have all the aspects of that right. So if anyone's looking it up and he didn't say exactly that, please correct me. I'm not sure I've got it right.
Yeah, there's a lot with that scandal. The part that I kind of wanted to talk about, not all the cases that fall under sexual misconduct or abuse. Some of them were priests going outside of the vows of celibacy and having adult relationships and fathering children.
Yeah, well,
and these children are being neglected by the church.
I would say in response to that, well, you could argue they're still breaking the rules because they're supposed to be celibate, but I'm an atheist, so that doesn't bother me.
Well, either way, it shows the horrible flaw of the system, and I don't know why Catholic apologists specifically even Christian apologists acknowledge the flaw in this system. Even Orthodox priests acknowledge the flaw in the system, and Orthodox priests still have vows of celibacy. Like,
Hmm.
not all of them are celibate, but you can still take that vow. You can still take a vow of what they call monasticism,
Yeah.
which is just their word for celibacy.
Yeah, no,
You can
I
still take that
understand what you're
vow.
saying, and because so the problem there would be because those priests are supposed to be celibate, the
Yeah,
children of those illicit relationships are not properly looked after, because
right.
they can't be seen to be involved with the priest, or the priest can't be seen to be involved with the child because they're not supposed to have them.
There's no way to word this conversation that doesn't sound creepy. That's the problem because of the bigger scandal that's going on.
Yeah,
The point, let's word it this way. The point is that the legitimate children of these priests are not being looked after,
yeah.
let alone all the abuse scandal that is so much bigger than this conversation. Like,
Hmm.
just the legitimate relationships are being ignored, let
Let's
alone
stick to
the
just that for a
tragedies.
minute. Let's
Yeah,
because everyone's going over the bigger main scandal. So let's stick to
yeah.
just this little one. Uh, I think that, to me, that is an example of the reason why I oppose things like big organized governments, religions, institutions of that nature. Because the rules never fit everyone, and the people who don't fit in the nice, neat boxes of the rules are almost always neglected.
I agree with you 100%. Continue.
So I think that's why things need to be done on a smaller, more local level and be done in a much more flexible way.
Well, there is, for instance, I read a thing called the Liturgy of the Hours, which is kind of a compilation of some of those books right there.
Hmm.
And basically, what it is that it's a record of the original church fathers. That means the people who actually founded the church. It's a record of their thoughts on the biblical text. This is long before any catechisms, just to be clear, long before Protestantism ever existed. And their view is that when religion gets too big and the bishop is not involved in the day to day life of the people, corruption happens, corruption occurs.
Hmm.
Because religion becomes so big that the rules cannot be adapted to the individual members of the what would be called the laity or what would be called the
Yeah,
militant.
I have the same view towards government.
Yeah. So you actually agree with Thomas Aquinas and with
If that's his view on that issue, then it seems I do. Yeah. An example of what I mean would be,
Ignatius.
I think using government as an example, if it's beyond the size where an individual citizen can understand and have some level of influence over it, it's too big. So let's say at local government, like the government of the city that I live near, I could go, I could walk into the city centre, go to the one of the councillors, and say to them, right, there's a problem with bin collection, and they could say, oh, what's the problem? And I say, well, they're coming on a day when everyone in the area is working, and they can't put their bins out that day because this particular district of the city is almost all populated with people on night shifts. And they say, oh, well, we'll talk to the bin people and we'll rearrange the collection day. That is, that's local government, where a citizen can have a direct influence on how the business of government is done. But I can't walk into London, walk up to the Houses of Parliament, have a chat with my MP, and say, right, here's the problem, because my MP has to deal with far too many things that are far too interconnected and complex for any one person to fully comprehend.
Well, I would argue, and I'm going to sound a little Hobbesian. Sorry. And I'm going to argue for the necessity of kings and popes and presidents, real quick, which is at a certain level there are too many churches, there are too many church members for the bishop to interact with each individual. I'm going to argue for the necessity of popes, kings, queens, and presidents, and MPs, because, for instance, In America, there are 50 states. Okay, there are too many states for one individual to rule directly. So you have to have a hierarchical government. So that way the important international laws can get dealt with while the local laws are not being ignored. It's just a case of necessity. There are too many churches for there not to be a pope. There has to be a central power figure. Otherwise, what happened to the Byzantine Empire would happen to the Roman Empire. You would just fall apart. It would just fall apart, man. Without a central hub, the the religious institution would fall apart. The government would fall apart. You do need that upper authority. On the other hand, a lot of the laws that are passed internationally don't affect me directly. Okay. Outside of Trump's wall thing, I don't think there's been an international law that has physically affected me personally outside of that. And I've lived, I'm 38 years old, and there's been one international law that's affected me directly. So you do need a higher level of government to handle those bigger issues. You just do. So I don't agree with you there. I do think that it is a problem, but I don't agree with your solution because without a higher institution, without a king or a president or a pope, these bigger issues, like when the Dalai Lama wants to meet with the head of Christianity, there needs to be a head of Christianity. There just does. Otherwise, you can't have these two religions talking to each other because me and you might get along, but me and godless cranium might hate each other. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's too individualized.
I don't want to
At
say
some
anything
point.
negative about Godless Cranium, but I have a feeling he'd get along with you in a less jovial manner than I do.
But you get what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And I'm sorry about the ramble, but I did get distracted by some work.
No, no, I know what you mean.
You know,
Now, from an outside perspective of being a badger, I think there's too many humans. I think that's the problem. Humans are not designed to live in these big, massive societies with millions of people, or billions of people, or however many people there are now. Humans, uh, the whole thing with primate cranial capacity to an extent dictating how many people are supposed to live within a community. Um, and kind of coming up that humans can only really actively care about 120 people or something like that. I think part of the problem is it's just got too big, and there's no way that it can actually be cohesive fully at this scale. I don't know what a solution to that is. I think that the whole centralised government thing is a solution, but it's not an ideal one. I don't have an alternative to it at the moment. But I think the balance needs to be more local than it is. I think power needs to be devolved more to local government than to national government or international government.
well, I got two responses to that, which is one is on the Pope talking about the death penalty, but the other one is on something my wife said. So remind me about the Pope one.
Yeah,
My wife sent me this
I'll pope you
paper.
about it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The my wife sent me this thing because she's an atheist, and she
Uh-huh.
sent me this thing how that because monogamy and self-sacrifice is against human nature, that therefore we shouldn't be swearing upon a Bible when we get married. We should be swearing upon a book by Richard Dawkins and evolutionary psychology. And the evolutionary psychology part, I was fine because I love Jordan Peterson. So I was like, yeah, I'll do the Jordan Peterson book, but I ain't doing the Dawkins. But what I told her was that I disagree with you. I said, no, no, no. You're telling me that it's not human nature to have pair bonds. You're telling
I
me that it's not human nature uh, to love each other. That it's not human nature to live in a group.
I
That
disagree
is
with swearing
entirely.
on a evolutionary psychology book, but for completely different reasons. Go on.
But what I was saying is that what I was telling her was that no, these are parts of human nature, and if you want to deny your human nature and say that you're less than an animal, then that's on you. That's not on human nature. Because even if you take animals animals aren't animals. You know what I mean? Like they don't behave the way the comic book or cartoon animal behaves. They care about each other. My cat gets hurt feelings when you ignore it. Like,
Hmm.
these these are living creatures. You don't get to deny
Badgers are a
actual
good example.
evolutionary. You don't get to deny actual evolution and say, well, yeah, but all the worst things in nature is what's true about animals. Well, no, both sides have to be true. It can't just be, you can't just pick one side. You know what I mean? Like the reality has to be the reality. You were going to say?
Um, well, I disagree with swearing on an evolutionary psychology book for a different reason, which is what significance does that book have to that person? In the case of a religious person swearing on a Bible, well, if they're a Christian, that applies. It has significance. This is the holy scripture of their religion, which they believe is directly linked to the creator of the universe. That has a significance for, you know, the, a binding mental contract for telling the truth. Um, what significance would an evolutionary psychology book have for someone who doesn't, believe is not a religious person? Because
Oh,
an atheist's even if you're an atheist who completely accepts science as a rational and a good explanation of reality, a science book doesn't have the same significance as a religious text because it's a completely different thing.
I agree.
I don't know
Uh,
what you then could swear on, but I don't think that would be a good substitute.
well, here's, I mean, I get into the whole history of swearing oaths and where that comes from because I actually know that stuff. But let's not do that. Instead, let's bring up what the Pope said about
Oh yeah, got a
the
poke
death
about
penalty
it.
because this relates directly to what you said and directly to what my wife said, which is the necessary evil of things. The Christian Church and the Bible has always held murder as evil. It just has. But it's also held that it's also a necessity. That sometimes in war you have to kill people.
Hmm.
Sometimes as a government you have to kill people.
Yeah, well, there
And
isn't
what the
a. If I just poke my nose in there, there isn't a. Uh, when I read, for a recent thing, which may be a video soon, I was looking at the Ten Commandments, and I looked at the original text, in the original language and the translations of the words because I was arguing with someone and I wanted to prove them wrong on the internet. So I was looking at the stuff. The word used isn't to kill is wrong. The word used is to murder is wrong.
murder.
Murder is different to killing in general. Murder is illegal or immoral killing, whereas just killing is a thing that depriving something of life. It's not quite the same concept.
So I'm gonna pick up right on where you left off, which is Jesus was murdered incorrectly. He was murdered for a crime he did not commit. He was killed as an innocent. He was a blood sacrifice. He was the lamb. So because of that, we in our religious culture have a deep thing against the death penalty. We always have. We've always thought of it as a last resort. And what the Pope was saying is that this necessary evil that has been necessary from time immemorial, guess what? We now have technology. We now have DNA tests. We now have, you know, psychology, sociology. We have all these new things that have occurred in the last 100 years where killing somebody might not be necessary anymore because now we can guarantee that the criminal is the person who did it. And if they're innocent, their genes can, you know, set them free. Like they can literally check to see if the DNA matches. So there's no reason to kill an innocent man at this point in our history. So the death penalty should go away, not never ever be used again, but as casually as we've been using it, we don't need it anymore. That necessary evil is no longer necessary. I think that's a very powerful statement. That's not how people are taking it, but I think
Hmm.
that's a very powerful statement.
It's an interesting
What do you think?
perspective. Uh, that might be the case. Not for religious reasons, from my perspective, but that might be the case that in the modern world, it might be possible to move past it, except in very extreme cases.
Hmm.
But then you get to the practicality argument of the cost of keeping criminals who've committed heinous, irreconcilable crimes alive, the cost to society of housing them in a prison and paying to feed them and look after them for the rest of their natural life, as opposed to ending that natural life so that they're no longer a burden. Although there's debates about whether it is actually more expensive to kill someone or to put them in prison. I think at that point it may come down to, in certain cases of very extreme and heinous crime, it might come down to a practicality argument.
Oh my God. Sorry, guys. I'm not yawning at the topic. I barely get to sleep anymore. This is a good conversation. Um, the Bible does have a solution to that, which is that if someone feels that they are innocent of a crime, or if they feel that the punishment that they would face is unjust, you had an exile city. Uh, Australia as a country was, kind of founded on that idea of just shipping out all the criminals that you couldn't deal with. There, I get where that's an answer. I get where someone might be innocent and we can't afford to house this person forever, but we can't, let them be part of society in case they're guilty and we can't prove anything one way or the other. So we got to do something with them. I get that argument. I really do. But the problem is that an individual needs to have the ability to repent. They need to have the ability to become a better person. And if you take that away from them, you're taking away hope. And in that case, they're already dead. The only control that a government has over you is over your body. They don't control your soul. They don't control your mind. They definitely don't
Well, there are
control your
certain elements
choice.
in the UK government might be trying.
You have free choice. You can choose what you want to do. And I think giving up your freedom is a very dangerous prospect. And anytime you do it, you better be sure that you're willing to pay the price for giving up that freedom. I'm right now in the Bible. I'm reading it again, uh, as you do, and I'm back with Saul and David, and the God was protecting his people and letting his people be free, and they were in a thing during a period called the Judges, and the people were acting heinous. They were doing these horrible crimes, and it got to the point where they needed someone to control them. And the people themselves realized that they were doing horrible things. So they asked for a king because they were jealous of the other communities having better social control. And God is like, you don't know what you're asking for. Even if you get one good king, even if you get one good king, you'll get 100 bad ones who will take from you and destroy you and do all this terrible stuff. Now I see, as God, I know that you need a king because of how bad you're behaving. But if you simply listen to me, listen to the rules of the Bible, and you listen to the judges, listen to the prophet, you don't need a king. If you follow the rules, you'll be fine. If you get a king, he's going to enforce the rules that I've given you. But he's also going to add his own rules, and he's going to tax you for them. And the people are like, no, 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 we need a king. Look, Babylon has a king, Syria has a king, Egypt has a pharaoh, we need a king. And so they get a king, but in turn, they sacrifice a lot of their freedom and they become slaves to the king instead of being slaves to God, which is relatively means that you're slave to reality, which means you're free. You know what I mean? You're all equally a slave. Once you have a king, you now have someone above you, always. So it's a really interesting
Hmm.
point that you bring up because the Bible, you know, we're talking maybe what 1,500 years ago had the same conversation, the same conversation that me and you are having right now over a futuristic recording device was being had between like a shepherd and a stone thrower. This same conversation
Hmm.
about balance of power and kings and giving and the sacrifice of freedom for social control. You know what I mean? Like it's an interesting thing. What do you think?
I think it's a very
By the way,
interesting thing.
and
Yeah, go
to
on.
interrupt you, that's where I see the value in the Bible. By the way, that's where I see the value in the Bible, right there.
Oh yeah.
So take that, all you atheists. All right,
Oh
keep going.
yeah. Well, I want to say I don't see the Bible as a book without value. I don't see that it should have the level of importance that it has in the modern world. But onto the point of of that little bit of the discussion. I agree. It's a very interesting topic, and it's a very difficult balance to find, and every different society tries in a different way to strike that balance. And there's advantages and disadvantages of every different approach to it. Like in the UK, at the moment, the government is trying to push a more controlled version of that balance, and I don't think it's working. I think it's making the situation worse, and there are a lot of people gradually starting to push against it. I think the some of the freer aspects of it that you get in, for example, America, have disadvantages as well. Going to gun law, for example, the freedom of people to own guns does lead to the downside that people get shot with them. But there's advantages to owning them, which is people also think, well, maybe I won't try and shoot that person because they might shoot me first.
Also, hunting and protecting your family from
And yep,
animals.
yep, and that. Well, we don't have so much of the protecting people from animals side of things here because there are no longer any large predators that are a threat to humans in the UK.
A friend of mine, and I made a video a long time ago dealing with an NRA thing. A friend of mine, her child was attacked by a bobcat, and if she didn't pull out a gun and kill the bobcat, the kid would have been dead.
Hmm.
Her daughter would have died. So in America, like we still have wilderness.
Yeah, although they are talking about reintroducing wolves into certain very controlled areas in the
Which
UK.
would be awesome.
Now, I agree it'd be awesome, but somebody might get eaten, and then suddenly, oh, we should have guns.
That is a perfect place to end this conversation. All right, man. I'm gonna call it a night for me because I gotta still wash my vehicle and do laundry and do all the things I gotta do to prepare for my life. Anybody looking for a philosopher martial artist, give me a call, okay? Because if I can make more money doing something else, let me know. Um, it's been great talking to you guys. I have 311 videos. For those of you who have been wondering about my Quran stuff, don't worry, they're on here. If for some reason this phone gets lost, I can re-record them. I have notes. I also have 4 Qurans, okay? So if I have to, I can just read it out on camera and give you my reactions to the lines that I find most interesting. Also, I want to make a house cleaning note for those who watch my Quran study videos. They are not tutorials on how to be Muslim. There's a lot of Muslims who watch it and they say, well, what's the point? What do you know about Islam? The point is that I know nothing about Islam. I'm giving you my fresh, honest opinion as I read the book to what I read. That's all I'm doing is I'm giving an outside perspective. This is just a diary or a journal of my thoughts as I read through the Quran. As for my other series, I don't have time to film them anymore, guys. Sorry. I will still be doing the comparison between the Bible and the Torah. I find that very interesting, but that's going to be happening maybe once a month. The rest of the time, it's either going to be commentary videos like this, or it's going to be conversational videos like this, or it's going to be the Quran study, because I don't have time for anything else. And you'll also see me doing book reviews because I am able to do audiobooks. So I'm doing a lot of audiobooks recently. All right, bad tempered. Anything going on with you? Anything you want to promote? Anything going on? I hear there's
Yeah,
a kind of change going on at your channel.
yeah. I've been having a bit of turmoil in my life lately as well, so I haven't. It's not that exactly that the time requirements have changed. It's that what I do with my time, I'm trying to to sort myself out rather than stagnate. So I'm trying to readjust my schedules and everything to make me more productive. Uh, Part of that includes I can't spend quite so much time editing videos. So I am still doing edited videos from time to time when I find something that I have something that I feel I need to say. I've got an important topic to do a prepared video on, but I've been transitioning my channel a little bit to doing more live streams and pre-recorded discussions with people, like this one, for example. So I'm putting out a call to anyone who wants to come on the channel and have a discussion on a topic. It's primarily been theists and religious people so far to discuss that, because that's kind of what I started with on the channel in order to get anywhere. But also on other topics like politics, environmental issues, a little bit of philosophy, although I don't do philosophy as an academic subject, so I won't be quoting the books at you on that. I just like to talk about things that are generally looked at in a philosophical sense sometimes. If anyone wants to come onto my channel and have a discussion with me, they can do so. We'll have a chat and see if we can get on. We'll arrange a time and a date and all that. I can be contacted on Twitter at badtemperbadger, or you can email me at you'll like this one, badger@cock.li.
With approval. Can I also add? I want to give a shout out to Skylar Fiction, Bionic Dance, because I never do give her a shout out, but this isn't really directed to her, but I still want to say it to Bionic Dance. But I want to give a shout out to Is the Original and to Skylar Fiction, and I'm calling you guys out. Both you guys have said that you want to do some videos with me, but I haven't heard back from you guys. So, given that I have a much more limited schedule than I used to have, I would like to actually do an interview with you guys. We can do it on your channel. It's fine. My channel has a backlog that's forever, so whatever. But yeah, I do want to do that interview. I would like to talk to Skylar about religion and to see where the conversation goes. He's talked to some big names, so it'd be interesting to see him talk to a no-name like me. And as for I really love your content. I really like your stuff. And yeah, I gladly talk some religion with you. And you can ask Badger. I have a good sense of humor about it, and I am
very
reasonable.
dry.
Yeah. So yeah. So like, don't worry about it. Like, we can have the conversation. It'll be cool. Is that everything? I think that's everything. Right?
I think that'll do for today.